Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm joined as usual, forever, never going to be separated from these guys by Richard.
Hello.
And Michael. You're still there, right? Oh, no.
What, did we lose him?
Howdy.
Oh, okay.
Hey, played a trick on us.
Okay.
Hey-o.
Richard and Michael, this round on the Mount Rushmore podcast will debate and deliberate the Mount Rushmore of breakups. Richard?
Yes.
What's this?
This has nothing to do with us.
Oh, God, I just get so worried.
It has everything to do with Michael.
Oh,
I think we're breaking up with Michael.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my God. No.
I'm glad this. I'm glad this isn't us. It's you situation.
I'll be better. I'll change. I'll wear whatever you want. I'll wear that outfit you like. Okay.
No, seriously, I came up with this because I was, and whether or not, I don't know if Michael, you probably don't have this on your list, but I was thinking about how funny it was when Sonny and Cher got divorced, and then they still had to do a TV show every week as a divorced couple.
No, Sonny and Cher aren't on my list. I thought of another couple that ultimately didn't make my list that are that same sort of iconic duo that were like miserable together, but they just had to do the thing. But yeah, it's so funny. Their misery is funny.
I know, and it's funny
in a variety setting.
How all of the Cher jokes about Sonny's height and all that stuff just doesn't seem as funny when you know that they're divorced and she's like banging Greg Allman or whatever she's doing at the time. Paul Stanley or Gene Simmons. It's Paul Stanley.
Well, yeah. Well, we got it. So the Mount Rushmore of breakups. So the reason you wanted to do this was because of Sonny and Cher.
Because I thought about it, popped into my head. I thought, breakups.
Well, in a way, it does seem like the flip side, or I guess the progenitor of a couple episodes ago when we had discussed duos and the things that kind of happen to them after they are no longer duos. So.
Yeah.
But a breakup could be more than one person. So Richard Thunkett, Michael starts it.
Well, I think we're all thinking it. My first thought was the Beatles.
Yeah, also on my list.
Okay, yeah. All right.
And I think what's interesting about the Beatles is that they were like the ultimate they should get back together band that never got back together, that lost the opportunity to get back together. It's the couple that you were like, God, they were so good together. Oh, I can't believe they broke up over such a stupid reason. Oh, why are they're making such great music? Why don't they just get back? They're my favorite. You know, I grew up with them. They're the freaking Beatles. And then, a couple of years go by and Paul and John are kind of at each other's throats, writing, songs about each other, making fun of each other. And John goes off into his weird kind of, wearing army jackets phase. And then he takes more time off to go raise his kid, which is actually somewhat admirable. And then by the time he gets back, he's, 39, 40, he's grown up a little bit, and maybe there was a chance. And then, he goes and gets himself killed like a selfish bastard he is. But I think that the breakup of the Beatles is one of those things that, if the Platters broke up or like another band had broken up, it's like, okay, well, that band's just stopped making music together. They felt like the first kind of familial rock and roll band. They were just those four guys. They were making their music. You were growing up with them. I wasn't personally. I wasn't alive. But they had that kind of aura of they were in their, late teens, early 20s, into their 30s. They kind of matured and grew up all together. And then that was it. And then they were just over. And it was just like, oh, they can. What a bummer.
Yeah.
And I think there's other bands that have that kind of a similar mystique to them. I think of, like the Smiths as this band that could potentially get back together, as been this one kind of band that broke up for kind of probably egotistical reasons and maybe just wanting to take the music in a different direction. And that's a band that I really wouldn't want to get back together.
Right.
They're like the band that's like, oh, I'm okay with them having been, kind of crystallized in my head in 1986 as like, okay, I don't need it's now been almost 30 years, 20 something years on. You're like, okay, I don't need that. But with the Beatles, especially when Lennon died, they were apart as long as they were together. They were apart for 10 years and they were together for about 10 years. And that feels like oddly satisfying in a way that they never, once you lost one of them, you were never going to get the rest of them. It wasn't going to be the Beatles after that. And I think that breakup was like a real, kind of a shock. It's just like, oh, they grew up and they grew out of each other's way.
Yeah. And they were a band that there's this, like you said, there's this aura and mystique around them where people want to know, why did they break up? Because the answer can't just be, oh, they just kind of wanted to do their own thing. It had to have been, was it Yoko? Was it Paul being too much of a control freak? Was it Ringo? Okay, it wasn't Ringo. The one thing I know is that it wasn't Ringo. Ringo would have kept the Beatles together. They'd still be together today if Ringo had his way.
Yeah.
And the other thing I thought about with the Beatles is, I mean, you mentioned all these other bands that could have gotten back together. I know the big one for a long time was like, wow, will the Clash ever get back together? That was one of those huge bands that until Joe Strummer died, everyone was alive, and there was still maybe this chance that they could at some point, maybe they'll work together. And I can imagine how much, like, Joe Strummer probably got asked, hey, are you ever getting the Clash back together? I can't fathom how many times Paul McCartney had been asked in his life, so what about getting the band back together? And it must have just been wearying.
Just like, look at all this. Yeah, built up like a callus around you of like, well, now of course I'm not going to. I've been asked 40 times in the last 10-minute interview, and it's like, I'm here to promote this thing with my wife. And I'm here to promote veganism.
Right, exactly. I've got my own thing that I'm doing, and then yet we were all, I think everyone at the time was just stuck in this, well, of course they're going to get back together at some point. Something that's this big, it almost has its own orbit, and at some point it's going to like pull the stars are going to align, everything's going to pull together. Of course it didn't. It is interesting though. I wonder if John Lennon had lived, hadn't been shot, would they have been night one Coachella headlining act?
Or the old Cella that is like, I think Paul McCartney.
Yeah, exactly.
Lollapalooza '92 would have been them next to 9 Inch Nails, having mud thrown on them.
Yeah, I don't know what venue do you book for a Beatles reunion? I think it depends. Like Hyde Park or something like that. One of those, like,
it'd be the O2 Arena for a year or something.
I think it just depends on the age in which they get back together. I mean, they were about 40 when, or John Lennon was 40 when he was killed, and that, I mean, I'm 42. That doesn't seem that old. We've seen obviously, like, I think there's like that counterpoint of the Rolling Stones that's just like, God, how are they still together? Yeah. I think that
how are they still alive?
How are they still alive? And how are they still together? They very much yin and yang. It's like, a bunch of people were kind of like the result of, the Beatles breakup. They were the kids. I think, Richard, you kind of hinted at it. There's like this, it's like kids not knowing why their parents broke up. Right. To put it in terms of like a relationship, you're always questioning, you're wondering what were the real reasons. And they were people that had their own emotions and their own whatever. And probably their own secret reasons that will never be found out, or who knows. And that's just like it is for real couples. You can talk to someone as much as you want, but you'll never really know exactly why a band broke up. And then you have a couple that's still together, and it's the Rolling Stones. You're just like, man, year 65 that they're going into, and you're like, what is going on with that? I can't. Oh, holy.
Well, you know what part of it is, I think, with the Rolling Stones, at least why I think they never broke up, is because they allowed themselves to go do side projects. Like Keith Richards had solo albums. Mick Jagger had solo albums. Hell, Ron Wood had solo albums. So they each allowed themselves the space to kind of go off and do their own solo stuff, and then come back, 6 months later, a year later. It's like, okay, time for our album and our year-long tour now.
Richard Manfredi standing for open relationships. Gotcha.
Yes, check. But I think that's the difference versus the Beatles, where I think they were seen as such a unit together that it was almost unthinkable that, if I remember correctly, I mean, Paul wanted to go off and do a solo album and then come back, and the rest of the Beatles are like, basically, you can't do that. We're the Beatles. Wait a second, it just didn't compute correctly.
If you look at the first, I love hearing what you guys have to say about it, because it's always been a mystery, not a magical one to me, why it hurts so much that group broke up. And I'm looking at the cover of A Hard Day's Night and the promotional material for Hard Day's Night, and it makes me rewind back to when I was a little kid and looking at the albums of the Beatles for the first time and not being able to tell them apart. So they had a familial resemblance that much of the world, and definitely America, to us, it made them indistinguishable. So they seem like brothers or family to begin with. So a family doesn't break up. And then they sound and worked so well together as a four on the floor rock and roll unit. And they were the progenitors of this idea of a band. So it's the idea of creating this nucleus that they put it together for the first time. We didn't know at that time, when rock and roll was evolving into this next thing. We didn't know how long it was going to last. If you hear the Beatles interviewed earlier, even the Stones interviewed early, as much as they love rock and roll, they don't think it's going to last either. So for them, the idea of breaking up, they're like, we're fucking surprised we're still together. Well, I thought, Paul thought, I thought I'd be writing Bond themes or songs for Petula Clark or something like that. Who knew that we'd still be a group. So the fact that they seemed like they were family to begin with, for me as a kid, at least when I first saw them, and then the idea that they invented this thing, we didn't know that they could destroy it. I know they didn't invent the rock group, but it was always, seems like it was Bill Haley and his Comets, or Buddy Holly and his crickets. Yeah, it was this person who was in the spotlight, and then ubiquitous, swap them out, interchangeable other people. It's real fun. I got a book. I'm a big fan of the 33 1/3 series of books.
Yeah.
Michael, you've read some of these or what?
Sure, I still have one of yours. I still have the Colin Malloy writes about. Who is it?
The Replacements.
The Replacements.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you'd love that, Richard, or if you haven't already read it. But like the
I'll go steal it from Michael.
Yeah, steal it from Michael.
Gotta find it.
But you watch as a kid, for me, listening to the White Album was something I did about the same time that my parents were separating, and hearing their fights is like hearing that record for me. It's like they each kind of have their very profound say about why this isn't working. And then White Album seems to be in musical form. And especially on songs like Revolution Number 9 or whatever, like it's all helter skelter. I think that's on there. It's all just like this cacophony of these guys who the sound they're making together is no longer harmonious. But in the little pockets of solo stuff like Blackbird, oh my God, that's amazing. There's those pockets of just solo amazingness and together discord, it seems. But then, if you watch Abbey Road, it's fascinating to me. This book talks about Abbey Road as being the culmination of a return to form for the Beatles. They were getting back together to start to kick off some live acts. They were going to do this huge performance at a Roman amphitheater in Tunisia. They brought in this guy, Billy Preston, who everybody loved so much, that was going to play keyboards for them. They wanted to be like the American group, The Band, and kind of return to this kind of rootsy version of this format of rock that they had loved so much. And all that went to shit because Paul's still an overdominating asshole. John's doing heroin. All the other
Yeah.
things aren't good ways to stay together. But like, yeah,
Ringo keeps asking my song about the unicorn that I want to do. They're like, oh, come on. Yeah.
It's funny too, like for me, even sometimes the Beatles, I'll hear a Beatles song like Two of Us from Let It Be, and I'll think, oh, that's a beautiful song about John and Paul. No, it's about Paul and Linda, or it's not about, maybe a lot of the binds that we thought were holding them together were actually not even, there was just not there to begin with. But yeah, wow, okay, I feel like we went through the ringer on that one. All right, that's the breakup of the big breakup of the 20th century. Okay, what's your second, Richard?
All right, so I've only got one that's personal. I don't know if Michael has any that are of a personal nature or not, but no. Okay, well, I guess I'm the only one who has one, which is interesting because I've only broken up with somebody once, and that was in high school. And I was the dumper, not the dumpy, not to brag, but Richard, love him and leave him, Manfredi. But one thing that I realized that I soon came to realize not too long after the breakup is that the post-breakup hookup is a terrible idea.
Oh,
don't do that.
Okay,
guys, people out there, if there are any teenagers who are listening to this show, and I know that we're big with the 14 to 19 demographic, don't do it.
Just when you break up from your dear Richard love for advice for the lovelorn.
Yes, that I used to write for the Onion back in the day. No, just don't do it. My girlfriend, then ex-girlfriend, then we got together just to hang out one time, and we wound up, getting physical.
Yeah, and
it was kind of the end of our friendship after that, because it got as weird as it got after we broke up. It was even much weirder after that.
Okay,
and things just sort of went all screwball.
Oh, I see. Oh, so I misunderstood that. It wasn't
not a rebound with somebody else.
It wasn't a rebound. It was a post-breakup re-hookup with
the ex.
I gotcha.
Don't think that you could just sort of like, hey, we're still, maybe we can do this on the side, have anything on the side going on, or kind of like we can still be friends but still do this and that. No, it does not work out 0% of the time. Based on my life experiences and people that I know, just doesn't seem to work out.
So this is like when George plays on a Ringo album. It's like, no, it's not working out.
Yeah, just stay away from it.
Okay, precisely why? Because it rekindles feelings. It has.
I think it's just like when you go through a breakup, you set boundaries. And me and my ex-girlfriend were like, we're still going to be really good friends. We were really good friends before we started dating. So we're still going to find a way to make the friendship work.
Yeah.
And we did for a while. And then one time it got, like I said, physical. And then after that, it's just like the boundaries that we had set up to try and make this new version of our relationship work.
Yeah.
Got all messed up.
Yeah.
I think that's the technical term for it. Is all messed up. Yeah.
All messed it up.
Yeah.
Totally understand that. I have to pause to let my dog out. I'll see that on the way.
Also, you crashing into the mic. We'll see that too.
Yeah. Look at Michael Winslow over here. Yeah. Jeff, do a helicopter noise next, or machine guns, Mister. I can do magic tones with my mouth.
Okay, this is how old I am. My dad had a answering machine in the 70s or whatever, but it wasn't touch tone. You had like a little box that made a sound. It made us, and if you lost it, like my dad did, you'd have to pick up the phone and go and try to make the sound that would trigger the answering machine to make it sound.
Oh man.
Oh no, it did have, it had it, but there were still rotary phones. That's what it was. Most people didn't have touch tone phones. Good story. Sorry. I'm so fucking old. Okay. I have done the thing where you rehook up with the person after it's over, and no matter how each person says it's cool, it's going to be cool. Don't worry, it'll be cool. It's never cool. It's
Yeah.
fun.
No, it's just your best case scenario out of it is everyone just feels really awkward afterward.
Yeah.
And that's like the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is somebody thinks this means something else.
Yeah.
And then the other person doesn't. And then everyone's wires get crossed. And the next thing you know, because this is high school, there's lots of, forlorn letters being written back and forth. And just, no, I don't think it's any better as you're an adult, because all dating, I think, is high school drama bullshit, probably even as an adult.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
Bosk and IG88 had a lot of forlom letters.
Forlom?
Yeah. He was another bounty hunter.
I don't even get that.
Bounty hunter. Yeah. Listen.
I know they're both bounty hunters. Wait, what?
Forlom was another bounty hunter.
Oh, was it? Okay. I wish I was a nerd enough to. Oh man.
God, I'm
sorry, dude.
Can you just edit this out from when you beeped out of us? Put this out. Came back. Thank you.
Okay. All right. It's Michael's second.
Okay. I'm going to stay in England, and this is the breakup of Prince Charles and Lady Diana, the Princess of Wales.
Good one.
Which was one of those. I was thinking of that primarily because of like the recent like Harry and Meghan Markle breakup with the royal family, like completely just they're like, we're done with this kind of toxic family that treats Meghan Markle like shit. But with Princess Diana, I'm sure she felt some of that as well. And I think what makes this breakup like pretty powerful was how much the wedding and the nuptials, everything leading up to that wedding was just so there's obviously the pomp of it all, like it was the
fairy
royal
tale
wedding,
the fairy tale of it all.
The fairy tale wedding of a prince and a princess wedding. And it was done in the early 80s, 81, where the country was kind of England was kind of in a shitty state. There was a lot of poverty, and there was kind of like this right-leaning or heavily right-leaning Margaret Thatcher was in power, and there's just punk was kind of taking over as kind of a cultural phenomenon. And then there's like all this rejoice around this kind of sweet, very kind of humble person that was going to become princess. And I don't know a lot of detail, to be honest. Like, I don't know all of the stuff that went into how they met and how ultimately, one would imagine that she would have been kind of chosen in a certain way, or vetted or approved by the queen, and all the different stuff that goes into like the nobility. And she came from nobility anyway, and then you flash forward a decade later, and they're both kind of cheating on each other, and him especially, and she's feeling like on the outs with the family, and she's kind of trying to raise these two boys, one of whom is going to be the next king of England, or a future king of England, and the other one's going to be the second two, so always kind of in this backseat role. And I don't know, when they broke up, I bet the country was in some state of shock, although the tabloids in England are awful. I'm sure they dragged her through the mud for the entire decade, just looking for any sort of crack and fault. But I remember that being like kind of like, oh, that can happen.
Yeah.
And I don't think that like I don't think they thought that it could happen. Obviously, there was a king that was chopping off heads a few hundred years before, over and over. So like it could happen. But I think it came as quite a shock to everybody because of kind of like Richard said, that fairy tale aspect to it all that was kind of like, oh, well, these aren't people in a storybook. These are real humans that have real feelings. And sometimes it doesn't work.
Do we think Queen Elizabeth's longevity has instilled for
oh yeah,
a generation of people? Like she's been a perfect queen forever. Like she's been this, I don't know how long she's been in that. Has she been in that from 1952? Yeah, golly, almost 70 years she's been queen. And so there's been this kind of perfection of this woman who has isolated us from all the memory of beheadings and all that stuff. And then before that was World War II and the World War I and the war era, in which it seemed like that kept all the scandal and stuff kind of maybe in the background. So it seems like it kind of insulated us from the lurid royalty kind of behavior. So that when Lady Di comes around, she does seem like this doll. Like it all seemed like a collectible doll set.
I think there's also with the Queen, I expect that there is probably this, at some point there was like a weird push to get Prince Charles married to generate the heir.
Yeah.
There's that, as much as anything, that is like part of the nobility, is like you have to create this next in line aspect to it. And I'm sure it's carried on to Prince William and his wife and their children and all this stuff, all the people that are next in line. But there must be just this tremendous weirdness in that family to be like, to meet Charles and be like, I'm going to be the next king of England. Oh, it's been another 30 years. You don't want your parents to die, but then you're expecting to take over the throne, and you're married to someone who's going to be the, next Queen of England or Queen Regent or whatever whatever the title is to the person that's married to the king. I think it's the Queen, but it's whatever it is. I don't know. I don't know how the hierarchy of English nobility sets up, but like there's so much that is going into it that's not just like romance and fairy tale-ness. It's not all Sleeping Beauty and you find the prince in the forest.
There's like a business aspect to it.
Yeah. And I think that is definitely overshadowed by the image that's put out there.
Also, they are the regents over geography the size of the state of Louisiana. I think it's not like it's this crucible that everything is focused under. It's so much more focused.
Jeff, the sun never sleeps. Okay.
No,
they have
the Empire. Okay.
Yeah, they still have the British Virgin Islands.
Oh, sorry.
They still have.
They're on Canadian money, so I guess
they're on Canadian money. I think they're on Australian money. So, hey, they're good.
Okay.
I think there's a. Sorry, I'll cap this with Charles, who's now 72. I just looked it up, and that's going to be like a weird thing. Is like one day when he becomes king and he's like 77, because the Queen's hanging in there for another. She's rocking it for a number of years. She looks fine. She's long live the Queen. She's doing okay. But like when like the 77-year-old king is crowned, it'll be like, oh my God, look at this parade. What is this? It's not a young person taking the throne. They're not in the prime of their life. They're just like, we got to do this one before we do the next one.
Yeah, it's gonna be a weird placeholder feel to it. Yeah.
All right. Halftime, ladies and gentlemen, you have the opportunity to get in the dialogue in regards to what our future topics are. You could go to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and search for Mount Rushmore Podcast, and you're going to find a thriving community full of intellectual discourse in which legions of literati are vying to nominate and then debate and then elect the next topic that we will discuss here on the program. So add your voice to the throng of people who are thriving to get their voices heard out
I'm sorry.
there.
Did you hear me laughing? I'm sorry.
That was
My bad.
a snicker. Oh, I think your water heaters blew up again. I heard like a gas leak or something.
Let's not start with that.
Oh my God, our tankless water heater was messed up, and I called like a general plumber, not a tankless water heater specialist. So this guy comes out and he's like a 2-year-old fidgeting with one of those busy boxes, just spinning any knob he can find. And what's this do? What's this do? Yeah, this seems broken. Yeah, no fucking shit. That's why I called you out here.
Not to bore our listeners with it, but our water tank went bye-bye, and I think we have to split up. We have to break up with our plumber because they did not do a good job.
Oh no. Okay, well, you could do that. You can join the thriving throng of thousands who are out there giving us suggestions that we very frequently take and put on our show. And then you can also do us a solid and go back, download, rate, and review past episodes. Reviews. That's something I don't think we've had in a long time. I would love to read a review.
You would.
Yeah. I'd love to see what folks think. Yeah. Whether it's going to be stuff like, who was Elvis Costello was talking about the Beatles albums, saying when you first played the new, they were reinventing themselves so quickly, you'd put their new album on and it just wouldn't sound like the Beatles. Or they'd say, well, they're going to do this, and it just sounded unfamiliar. And then by the next time you played it, it was the best thing you'd ever heard in your life. Like I mentioned, Sgt. Pepper just sounded like, what the who was Sgt. Pepper?
Yeah, that must have been a total mindfuck whenever that came out.
Yeah. And then you even realize, oh, they're telling a story with an album. It's not just a bunch of singles. So, that's what we're doing with this podcast, folks. You got to listen to all the back episodes and you realize we're playing the slow game. We're playing the long con on you. It's all going to add up and pay off. You might not see it quite yet. It might seem like a random assortment of disparate topics that are just chosen at the last minute.
I'm not going to spoil too much, but if you guys go and listen to episode 117 backwards.
Yep. Major clues.
There's some clues there.
Yeah.
All I'm going to say.
Yep. So get out your, your red string and your thumbtacks and stuff like that, and try to solve it, because it all ties together.
That was episode Kickstarter Fiascos for those in wanting to know. And if you unscramble Kickstarter Fiasco, it says I buried Paul.
That's it.
So it's all, yep.
That's it. Huh. Whoa, shit, he just solved it. Oh my God.
Damn it.
Oh my God.
I mean, or does it?
Or does it?
Listen to the episode to figure it out.
We're not saying that Paul Hollywood from the Great British Bake Off is dead and there's a fake version of him, but we're not saying that either.
Do you know Paul Stanley chose the stage name Paul Stanley because his name is like Moishe Lipschitz or something like that. Because he loved Paul McCartney.
I thought you were going to say Stanley because he was a big Marvel fan.
That could be it. Because he was a big Mr. Furley. Stanley, when are you going to make love to me? Oh, that Jack, he's living with two ladies. What a lucky guy. Oh, God. Don Knotts impersonations play really well. Oh, wait. No, wait. That was a different guy. Okay.
You're thinking Norman Fell.
Norman Fell. Yeah, sorry. The other white meat.
Please.
All right. So Michael Winfield. No, wait.
No, my turn.
Manfredi is going to tell us the story.
All right. So, hey, lady.
Oh,
Dean, why won't you work hard with me anymore?
Hey.
Perhaps the first not the first television stars, but the first team of television stars, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis with the Colgate Comedy Hour, starting in 1950, and were well known as this great comedy team, whether it was on TV or all the movies that they made. Whatever they happened to do, it seemed to be successful. So it was in some ways quite a shock whenever they decided to go their separate ways. And there's a lot of reasons, and there are. One of the things that fascinates me about the Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis breakup is that there's no there doesn't seem to be one specific thing that was like, oh, they broke up because X, Y, or Z. kind of in the same way that there were with the Beatles. There were multiple things happening, and you can't just point to one thing and say, "Oh, that's what broke up the Beatles." There are a lot of things that broke up Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis wanted to go and he wanted to be Charlie Chaplin, basically. And he wanted to start doing the kind of comedy mixed with pathos, mixed with drama that Charlie Chaplin was doing. And that didn't really fit with what Dean Martin wanted to do. Jerry Lewis was this workaholic who would work, 16, 18-hour days. Dean Martin loved playing golf and hitting the golf course and maybe working a couple of hours a week here and there, doing his shows at night, and then having his days to himself. I guess their wives also didn't get along, which is kind of seems like a very minor reason to break up.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, if my wife hated your guys' guts and your wife's guts, I think we'd have a hard time doing a show together.
Yeah. It could be.
So there are just all these little things that were going on. And I think it's interesting because arguably they both did just fine apart from the group. It wasn't like one of those things where they split up. Jerry Lewis went on to have this amazing career and Dean Martin kind of trailed off into obscurity. I mean, Dean Martin becomes Brat Pack Dean Martin, has #1 singles as a singer, does TV and movies and all that. And we all know about Jerry Lewis's comedy career. So it's one of those rare breakups where I think it was wound up eventually being beneficial probably to both artists. It just kind of felt very acrimonious at the time. And it took really Dean Martin's kid dying in a plane crash and Jerry Lewis coming to the funeral for them to patch up any wounds that sort of were opened up by the breakup.
I love this choice. I've read a few of their book. I've read the Jerry book. And I love reading about like Dean in relationship to the rest of the Rat Pack. Whereas all these guys are kind of subservient to Sinatra. Even amongst the Rat Pack, he was like, I'm not gonna kiss Sinatra's ass. Second-rate mook from Hoboken. No, he had a love it or leave it kind of relationship with fame in some ways. I mean, he was comfortable enough with what he could do that if he wanted to be part of the Rat Pack, then that was fun. That was great, but he didn't have a need to be part of a group anymore. Yeah. I was watching one of was it the Our Man Flint? I forget which his spy series was.
No, Our Man Flint.
Matt Helm.
Yeah.
James Coburn or something like that. Matt Helm. And Dean Martin is just being so Dean Martin, just kind of taking life as it comes. It's the beginning of the movie and we first see him, we hear snoring and he's, drunk in bed in a circular bed after one of life's incredibly fulfilling sexcapades. And NASA or some organization calls him and they say he needs to come, be a spy again or something like that. He hangs up on him, and then he presses a button in his bed. This huge bed lifts up 90 degrees, dropping him into a swimming pool full of a bubble bath. And there's a woman who just starts rubbing his back, in the bubble bath. So here's this guy. This is how he goes through life, right? Just kind of falling from one kind of opportunity into another without really wanting too much. So that's what seems like how he saw the relationship between him and Jerry anyhow.
Right. Versus Jerry Lewis, who, like I said, was this incredibly driven, super egotistical guy who thought that he was going to be the next, like I said, Charlie Chaplin. Yeah. And that's a hard thing to reconcile. If you guys get a chance, Sinatra tried to get Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin together mid 70s, I want to say mid to late 70s at the Jerry Lewis telethon. He surprised him by having Dean Martin walk out on stage. And it was the first time they'd been together in like 17 years or something. And it's awkward. And Jerry is pissed off about it, but he can't like blow up about it because he's in the middle of the freaking Jerry Lewis telethon. It's on YouTube. If you want to see uncomfortable, that's a good place to
see two oil slicks standing in between some olive oil.
Exactly.
Terrible.
Oh yeah. That's a fun choice. And I think Hope and Crosby were still for years plugging out movies in between their individual endeavors too. So if you might look and say, well, if these guys can do it, I think Abbott and Costello only death broke them up. So if you think, well, these other two teams can stay together, why can't Martin and Lewis?
Yeah.
All righty, Winfield, what do you got?
I'm gonna cross the Atlantic and talk about the Lady Di of the Americas, which is of course Diane Chambers of Sam and Diane.
All right,
nice.
From Cheers, which they're the ultimate, opposites attract, oil and water sort of couple that work together even though they shouldn't, and when they ultimately break up, it was like one of those things that was almost like what Richard said with Martin and Lewis, is like it was probably better for them. Like they weren't really doing anything together other than, fighting and fucking. It was like they were in a relationship that like was only working because of like the passion. It wasn't working because of any, compatibility of like just spending time together. And ultimately when she left the show. Oh God, her name's what's her name?
Shelley Long.
Thank you. When Shelley Long ultimately left the show, I think it was because she, in part, realized that her character had kind of become a little one note. It hadn't really grown to any particular point, and within the show itself, the show became about their relationship when it should have been about the bar in itself. So her leaving ultimately was probably a boon for the show kind of going on a number of years. And I'm sure she went off to pursue her own, once you get to that point when you're like the star of the sitcom, it's kind of like that SNL thing too, where like someone has been starring on SNL for so long and they see like the future of what they could be doing when it's not part of SNL and it's movies or it's a TV series. And, I would probably say like 7 times out of 10 it failed. And I think same thing with Shelley Long. She kind of had some success in the movies, but there wasn't really anything there for her as an actress. But for the show itself, for Cheers, it kind of kept going on and started being more about the bar again and the relationships within the bar and Sam's relationship to the new bar owners. And I don't know, I thought that was just like one of those like, oh, well, that was like the premier TV relationship that people were kind of probably passionate about one way or another. They wanted them to get together or they wanted them apart and all that.
Oh, it's a really interesting pick. I do think she was kind of like, she became Margaret Dumont and the rest of them were the Marx Brothers. She could just kind of look over her lorgnette and say, oh, how dare you? And yeah. And I do think even at that time, I don't know what would have been our model for it, but TV audiences probably knew if these two come together, it's going to be the end of the show. So yeah, it does seem, I do remember, I think the first thing I remember her in from a feature standpoint is Night Shift afterwards. And she was playing.
Well, that was before.
Was it before?
Yeah.
Okay.
She went on to do like, she went on to do like Troop Beverly Hills. Yeah, that's the one I remember.
Okay. Yeah, Night Shift was 82. So it would have been right before she started on Cheers.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I got that. My timeline's all messed up with that. That's a fun pick. I think of only Moonlighting, the Willis.
Oh yeah.
Of the will they or won't they sort of, and when they do, it kind of screws everything up.
Yeah. To even compare to that. So that's a lot of fun. But I think Ted Lasso has something going on in that pocket. I'm not sure if there's anything going on between him and these other characters. in it.
I gotta
because-
watch that show. I don't have Apple TV, so I can't watch it. And we're in the middle of trying to watch Schitt's Creek, so
Oh,
we're a little
it'll
tied
be a
up
while.
right now. But
I-
I definitely want to watch Ted Lasso. At some
I
point.
boy, I'll stop and this is one of those shows where you stop and go, I know why this is so great, because it's like Bull Durham, or it's it feels
Mhm.
like this other show. So but it's just great in its own right. Okay. I guess this is the last
last
time.
choice, yeah, last
Last
hurrah here.
breakup. Oh wow. Okay. Well, we had a good run, I guess. What do you
Yeah.
got?
Well, was it good? It's okay.
I
It's
thought it was
fine.
great.
It was
Okay.
there were good times or bad times.
Well,
All right, so my last choice is Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz.
oh wow.
That was the
Um,
other couple that I
was
was
it?
thinking of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of thought that that's where you were leaning. And they never really worked together after they split. They split in 1960. That's when they officially got divorced. Although Lucille Ball, when they first got married, and they first got married in 1940, and she wanted to divorce him by 1944 because he was a womanizing, tomcatting alcoholic. Or in theory, or at least allegedly. I think the infidelities is pretty well known. He would argue a little bit about whether or not how much he drank. But no matter what, there were problems in the marriage by 1944. They had met on the set of a RKO movie called Too Many Girls, and he was this, handsome young band leader, and she was this studio contract. At one point, she is sort of. They couldn't figure out whether she was a comedian or a femme fatale or what to do with her. And they met and they kind of had all this crazy chemistry. But people around him were like, yeah, they've got this great chemistry. How long is this marriage going to last? Because we all know as soon as Desi gets back on the road with his band, he's going to be off to his tomcatting ways. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason that I Love Lucy actually came together was because they wanted a project they could work on together, with the thought being that if he was home and working with her, he wouldn't be out on the road, and that would take care of a lot of the marriage problems. And it did for a long time. It did sort of patch up some of the problems. But after the show went off the air and he went back to being a band leader, the whole thing kind of restarted all over again, and eventually got to be just too much for her. And I just am fascinated with this idea. Excuse me. I'm just fascinated with this idea that the relationship that we think of as perhaps the most iconic relationship in all of television didn't have a happy ending, no matter what we saw on screen. And it's just, to me, that's, even though they wound up running Desi Lou Studios together. I mean, Desi Lou, they were probably maybe the first portmanteau relationship, before there was a Jennifer or a, Brad Brangelina or anything.
Mm-hmm.
There was Desi Lou, and they ran this company together even after they got a divorce. They remained really good friends. So it's not like it's this sad story. They both went on to remarry other people and stay married for a long time. But it's just this idea that, I don't know. I remember being a kid and watching the show, and I just assumed as a kid, oh, they must have stayed married and then just been married their whole lives. And it's just sort of that thing when you find out, no, they actually got divorced like 8 years after the show went off the air, or however long it was. You kind of go, okay, interesting.
Yeah. I don't know if it's an observation of a person who's mellowed with age and changed his sentiment, but I've heard of people who said Desi, Ricky's Desi, his off-screen persona, his real life did screw around, but was always in love with her.
Yes.
So,
Yes, I think that there was always an affection there, even if he had trouble keeping his Cuban ham in his pants, so to speak.
Yeah. And amazing things. Like I can't, I think of that, maybe to bring it back even though we're not done yet, we still got Michael's, is full circle, is the Beatles relationship of Lennon and McCartney did a lot of stuff out of agreement, but a lot of stuff out of conflict. And who knows what it was all Lucy's brilliance in terms of inventing syndication and inventing 3-camera shoots and shooting on film because it looked better. You could rerun it and have it be better. And then producing what she produced, Star Trek. I don't know if we might not even had, I think Batman was filmed on the Desi lot or something like that. So
Yeah,
there was a lot of stuff that they together innovated, even though maybe they weren't the best of romantic partners.
oh sure, the whole idea of taping the show so you would be able to rerun it at some other point. I mean, that was their idea.
Yeah, let's get these film cameras out here and shoot it in a way that's really quality versus some kind of piece of junk, because we want to show it again. And I've heard that set of previous productions is that the live to tape kind of vibe of a lot of these things, they were so filled with errors and production imperfections that you wouldn't want to see it again because it just was, you saw
amateur hour.
Yeah, I want to see the door fly off in Eddie Albert's hand after he walks in on the DuPont Network show. Like, no, we don't want to see that.
I kind of want to see that, actually.
Yeah, kind of. That sounds
good. Pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Do you know that? Do you remember the Christopher Walken?
I love the high pitched last final thought from Jeff. He's got one more.
Christopher Walken had a recurring, when he was a guest, series called The Continental on SNL.
Yeah.
And it was the most bizarre thing, a cameraman with a gloved hand. It's a first person perspective of Christopher Walken as this kind of lecherous Lothario, and we are the woman who he is ensnaring and wooing. And it was a real show that was really, it was started out on radio as developed for lonely housewives who were the people listening at a certain time, where it was just a guy saying, "Hello, you're beautiful. I'm so glad you're here." And so Walken remembered it from his childhood and said, "May we do a sketch about it?" Like, oh my, yeah, okay. It was based on a real show. That just blows my mind, because it seems like the weirdest thing you could possibly even imagine. Winfield. Look, I'm going through some stuff with Richard. It's not really a good time. I mean, this is a good time for us, but I feel like very vulnerable, and I feel like maybe you could talk some sense into him. He just told me that he was giving us his last choice.
Listen, I'm going to put this all in perspective for you.
Okay.
Listen, things may come and go. Things may break up.
Okay.
It's always getting back together.
Okay.
And that's why on my last choice, I'm going to talk about the supercontinents. Talk about things breaking up and getting back together. We're talking about Valbara leading to leading to Kennerland, to Arctica, to Atlantica, Columbia, Rudinia, Panotia, Gondwana.
Those are some great Lord of the Rings characters.
Some
of my favorite characters.
Those were
the also
SDDs,
dwarves.
I thought.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I love looking at a map of like the continents of the Earth constantly breaking up and smashing into each other over like millions and millions of years. And it just really puts into perspective of like, we're all just on a trajectory of just these bits of land pushing along, smashing into each other. It takes 100 million years, but we'll get back together. Things push us apart, whether it's volcanoes and earthquakes and tectonic plates and, erosion and all these things, super mountains being the largest mountain in the world whose name escapes me, even though it should be on the tip of my tongue.
Everest?
Mount Everest, thank you, is there because of like all these continents smashing into each other. And it's like, how long will that thing be the largest mountain in the world? Not that long, few million years probably. and then it's going to just crumble again and fall apart, and the earth is going to shift again and break up and get pushed back, and just makes you feel like, kind of like we were talking about last week with like mother nature and earth. It's just doing its own thing, and it's just breaking up with itself and getting back together. And so, you know what, just all these little relationships, Sam and Diane, and, you know, Martin and Lewis, they all reconcile somehow in some way, mostly by getting crushed under the weight of, like, you know, the volcano or the bones of dinosaurs or whatever it is. This is a dumb one to end on, but
Wow.
like I just like this stuff. There's this one website that we'll have to find to send you guys and maybe post to the world at large, that lets you put in like whatever date, like whatever, you know, how many millions of years, so you can kind of scrub through and watch the earth just smashing into itself and breaking apart again. You can look forward millions of years to see where we are 100 million years from now. And just that they've studied this, just that they know, you know, exactly is a hard word to throw around, but they know where these plates have gone and plates are moving and will go, and just like, we're not going to be here, but we know what's going to happen, which is it's a weird thing to think of in terms of like science. It's like, yeah, no one's going to be around to witness this, but this is what it'll look like 82 million years from now. And you'll be like, oh, that's weird. We're right next to Russia again. Huh. Okie dokie.
Wow. I wonder what Zillow, does it say what my house is going to be worth on Zillow? Like when I'm at the bottom.
Yeah, when you're now part of like Thailand.
Yeah.
Let me check.
Nothing.
Well, good news. You've got a great view.
Oh, sweet.
Bad news. On the edge of a volcano about to fall in.
Oh shit. Okay.
So make sure you like, yes, sell.
So get insurance.
Get volcano insurance.
Get that homeowner insurance. Fix the water heater, and yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Get the fiberglass heat insulation.
Wow. All right. So
please don't pick that one as one of your choices.
The valley's already hot to begin with. I think if we're in the middle of Africa, in the savannah, the San Fernando Valley gets dropped right in the middle of the desert, the Gobi Desert. Is that a desert?
Yeah, that's a desert. Yeah.
Okay.
That's one.
So I'm going with supercontinents.
Oh no!
Just because you listed off so many names and none of them were Pangea, which I thought was the only thing I even knew to say.
I got there at the end.
What was the gonorrhea? The last one was like gondola.
Gondwana.
These guys just get to. I'm jealous of the namers. They come up with these things. They get to name them.
Let me see it. Wakanda and
Wakanda.
Start naming shit.
Okay, so let's go. Let's
Tatooine.
go with. We got to go with the Beatles. And I got a special thing in my heart for Dean and Jerry. And I think because it kind of opened my eyes to a time that I need to kind of re-examine historically. I want to do Prince Charles and Lady Di, because I think we're at another bookend of that right now, and it'd be interesting to see that. Go back and look at that. And I wonder if would it have been good if Elton John would have written a song for their wedding, written a song in the middle at some point, like things are going great. I think they're never gonna break up. And then when they got divorced, it's like,
seems to me your marriage is doing just fine.
Yeah. I saw her hooking up with a chauffeur, Dodie Fayed. Okay. All right. Did we get 4? I think we got 4.
Yeah, that's 4.
Yeah. Boy, you thought the Supercontinents was a bad way to end that song that Richard and I just duetted on.
Yeah, we just that'll lead to a breakup somehow.
Isn't it weird that our plumbing is just collapsing and we're singing these horrible songs? I think we're vocally destroying it. This has been the Mount Rushmore of Breakups. I, as always, am Jeff.
I'm Richard.
Michael.
Yay.
Good job. That was a fun episode.
It was fun.